you doing?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I think Tim's having a little bit of trouble with the link.
Because I am muted. Hi, guys. Whoa.
Hi, Tim. I got messages from other people that are waiting to get in, so you should see 3 or 4 other people waiting.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm having trouble hearing you. Why?
We can hear you fine, Tim.
I can hear you fine.
How about now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
Oh,
a little bit of an echo, but
yeah, I'm in a room. That's kind of echoey.
so are you seeing the other people waiting to come in?
Nope.
Huh, can I text them and tell them? I just texted
Let me see if I got any emails. No. Did you use the link on the minutes?
I did.
Okay.
I did too. Well, on the agenda. On the agenda.
On the agenda, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the, agenda. Yeah, thanks for clarification. What should I tell these people that are,
Ask them if they click the agenda link.
I wonder if I can just invite them.
Hey. Thank you very much. No, no, no. Thank you. Hey, back over here. Hey, over here.
is that Sully you're talking to?
No. Yes. He's decided he wants to chew on the charger connection cable.
Okay, I texted and asked everyone to try,
I just sent an email as well. I like on the side of this Zoom page, I could invite people.
I wonder
Send
if
them an
they
email.
sent,
So,
I'm sorry, they're all saying that they used the agenda that I sent last month. Is that the wrong one? I don't know if they changed something.
I went into the committee tab on the city website. That's where I got the agenda and that's where I
oh,
got the link.
I just told them to check their email. I didn't see the text messages. And I'm texting my mom. My gosh, I've had a day. Oh.
Okay, I have to give Mark,
There's people.
Hello. Thank you for the updated link.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No
yeah,
worries.
I don't know what happened. You know, I sent the agenda and they have it scheduled so that we don't have to get a new Zoom link every time. So I don't know if they did something on the city end, but I submitted them what I sent to you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Looks like we're all here.
Hey, finally.
We made it.
So I don't know what happened. I sent the same agenda with the same link to the city to post. So they must have changed it on their end, but I didn't mess with the link from the template before, but I'll follow up and verify to make sure that you know, I'm not doing something correctly, but it's my understanding that they've set that meeting and saved that spot. And it's the same Zoom link because it's a repeat meeting. Hi, everyone.
Good.
Hi.
Is everyone doing all right now that we're here?
What happened to Steve?
He's here. He's just muted.
Oh, you're up
Yeah,
in the
I'm
upper
muted.
corner. There you are.
Yeah, I'm here, yep.
I was scanning and didn't see you.
All right. Well, how about when we get to it? I'm sorry, I'm dealing with like a different desk setup. I'm just trying to make everything look nice for me. It's not gonna happen though. Okay. Well, now that we're all here, I'll call the meeting to order at 5:43.
I'll take
And-
minutes.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
And are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I would like to give a heads up at the end of the meeting about a new bill that is that just got voted out of the Senate about open meeting law. So it's just a quick FYI and heads up.
Okay. I'm having one of those days where like everything goes wrong and now my pen died.
Reset.
Gosh. All right, it's back.
I don't
Okay,
know if we
we can
need,
definitely, it doesn't sound like it's super, it's not like a priority or anything, so we can talk about that at the end.
If we have time. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if at the end, if we have to talk about, do you think the cow pasture is gonna be super littered up after Eclipse Day?
Ooh.
Oh,
I don't remember when the eclipse is, but
April 8th.
I think is that
I
haven't
after,
heard.
is that before or after Green Up Day?
Before.
Or.
Oh, well, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was planning on going up to Perrin Field at the eclipse, so maybe I can take a cruise through the cow pasture afterwards and see what the conditions are and report back.
Yeah, I might be up there too, so.
I was thinking of it as well. But one thing, we should offer to clean up even the parent property, because I
Oh,
think
definitely.
everyone would end up on the high spot, which my daughter the other day said, that is the cow pasture, isn't it? And I was like, no, no, it's not. Good thoughts, good ideas. I'm glad you guys
Yeah.
were thinking of
Let's-
that. Um,
Let's talk about that a little bit more on when we do Green Up Day. Okay, well, so no other adjustments to the agenda then. Let's continue and have somebody read the communication agreement and mission statement. Does anybody have that available in front of them?
I can do it.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Mission statement: to connect people to the place in ways that allows recreation, exploration, collaboration, stewardship of the cow pasture. We affirm pursuing stewardship of the cow pasture has many dimensions, including a positive group process. Thus, we adopt the following agreements for all forms of communication: verbal, written, email, and so on. We value what each person has to offer. Please come prepared to participate fully. All relevant ideas are welcome. Pursuit of ideas will be based on feasibility and support of the group. Only present ideas that you are willing to carry out personally. Consensus agreement will be sought. Only block consensus when you cannot live with a decision moving forward. Seek first to understand and then respond with kindness and respect. Observe the 3 C's, keep contributions concise, constructive, and connected to the group's purpose. Share the floor and be open to responses even if you disagree.
Great. Thanks, Jeanette. And we need to approve the minutes from our January 18th meeting. Are there any updates or adjustments people have to those? Okay, we can accept those as is. All right, and our first big topic here are the advisory groups. So Mark, you had sent out a document, Mark Martin, sorry, you had sent out a document. It must have been shortly after our last meeting, or maybe right before it.
I believe it was right before, Tim.
Okay, and that was a proposal for, at the time it was, I can't remember the actual name right now, I'm forgetting it, but it was a conservation like subcommittee.
Right,
Chris,
right.
yeah, and Chris, I think you received some feedback from the city that had suggested calling them advisory groups just for a better definition, I guess, given that we may or may not have, or we may have people that are not on the committee on these groups. So yeah, do you wanna give us a quick recap of that, Mark?
Sure, yeah. Well, just an overview of the proposal is, and I had listed objectives and goals within the documentation that I sent, so I don't want to really go through that necessarily unless there are questions about them. But the idea is, according to the management plan, we would look for opportunities, the Cow Pasture Committee would look for opportunities to protect access into the cow pasture. Right now, we only have one official access at the parking lot there at the end of Maplewood. But there are potential access areas in city-owned property and then private property that currently allows the public access, such as the parent field. But should that change ownership, then that access could be in jeopardy. So the intent behind the subcommittee would be to identify those areas of access, and then develop, kind of prioritize which ones are in danger of being developed, perhaps, or whatever, or maybe just pick the low-hanging fruit. I don't know. We haven't really gone there, but to identify those access areas and points, and then work toward some structure in terms of protecting that, whether it be a trail easement or acquisition of property or whatever it may be. So that's and again, that's per the management plan that we would do that. And so given that I myself have professional background in conservation stewardship, and Mike Frazier, I don't know if you guys know that guy, but he has some background as well, and has expressed an interest. And although he's not on the Cow Pasture Committee, and Stacy Sabula is the Agriculture Conservation Director at the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, and she is a resident of the city of Barre, and she has expressed an interest in being on the advisory committee subcommittee. So that's kind of a broad overview of the intent behind that proposal.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good. I have a quick question because it made me think of it, since both Marks are at the bottom of my screen. Other Mark, Marco, is it Code or Cody?
Cody.
Cody, okay. What does the Snow Bees do every year for the parent property? Is it just like a verbal agreement each year?
No, it's a signed permission slip, same as the
Okay.
bring to city council.
It requires annual renewal though.
Yes.
Okay.
But there
Wasn't sure
have
if there was
been,
something more that could help the conservation side of trail access to the cow pasture in the summer too, but
yeah, no, I have heard that there have been some situations where we've received like an easement for the trail to cross a certain property to protect it from future development or whatever. But I don't think that happens a lot.
okay, it was just a thought I had. I wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, and it's a seasonal permission. So come April 15th, it's over.
Okay. The other advisory group, which Susan and I are proposing at this point, is for invasive plant control. And I had, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Tim, before we move on from Mark's, I had a couple of comments on it or recommendations that might, just like you had, Mark, I don't know if you noted, but you should change advisory committee to group, and on the language on your thing, as per recommendation of Carol Dawes. She's, it's sounds like more of an official committee. So advisory group is the better terminology. So if you can make that change. And the other addition that might be helpful on this, I guess it's the first sentence, which might be more run on if you add this. But you do talk about the city-owned paper streets below. But there's a large number of visitors that access the property through trails on private abutting lands, and city-owned paper streets might be a good addition, because I know that's one of your goals, to secure those kind of entryways to those paper streets that are kind of being taken over by adjoining households. So I think it would be good to kind of reiterate that at the beginning.
Okay. Yep.
And then the other question, or the other comment that I have in the beginning, you talk, and I think most of this came from the management plan, important habitat diversity, resources to and resources to the wildlife that depends on the cow pasture. But also, I think in an important point, especially with the recent flooding, is somehow if you can get verbiage in there to, mention that undeveloped lands also provide flood resiliency to the city of Barre, and protects the stream, and, in specifically that stream corridor, where we're lucky not to get damage on the cow pasture property along the stream. But, just kind of to keep that in mind too, that which might be a priority piece of land, if we could purchase a land just to conserve that. So I'm just kind of, going a little bit beyond maybe what the management plan had stated, and trying to encompass, flood resiliency and rivershed corridor protection. So I don't know if you may or may not agree to those additions.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, I could also throw in water quality as well, so.
Yeah.
If you want to broaden that, yeah.
And also on the objectives, you mentioned develop a tiered mitigation. And I
Mhm.
don't know if we're mitigating anything.
Okay. Um,
Well, I think we're mitigating that there's only one point of access, right?
Okay.
yeah, and I guess in what I was thinking when I said mitigation was just, and also maybe it's protection, or well, a tiered protection strategy, maybe, but yeah. We are trying to increase the protection of access points into the cow pasture, and so I'm not, yeah.
So there might be, and again, take it or or leave it. But I was like, a mitigation is Jeanette. You might have, hit the nail on the head with that access area. But I think it's more broader than that, what we're trying to do. So anyway, that was my only other comment. But thank you. It's really well written out, and I'm so glad that both of the groups reviewed the management plan and kind of pulled that in. I have one more of a general comment, which applies to both advisory groups, but I'll wait until after Tim shares what Susan and you have come up with.
Okay, Jim, I think you've been trying to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I made some fairly minor edits to it and I used track changes. I wasn't sure how to share it. I could just send it straight to Mark or I could send it to everybody, but like Chris was saying, it's kind of take it or leave it. I mean, it's going to look like a lot just because I separated cow pasture into 2 words, but otherwise it's good.
Okay.
Is it all right if I just send it to Mark?
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
okay.
That's what I'll do.
Is there
I
any
could-
like major content change that would be worth discussing or just kind of, okay?
No, I don't think so.
If the committee would like, I have a link to the Google docket, the Google Doc. I think I said everyone a Word doc, but if that would be easier for anyone to make any suggestions or changes, or otherwise, Jim just send me that and I can make those
Okay.
changes.
And I would like, when we're talking about Google Doc and Word, I always have issues converting them, and the city doesn't accept anything. Like when I send any piece of information, they won't accept a Google Doc. It has to be in Word doc format. So ultimately, if there's revisions to both of the proposals, I would like the final one sent to me in a Word doc format just to make it easier on my end. Thanks.
Okay. I believe you can export Google Doc to different formats too.
You can. That's what I did with that
Okay.
Word doc. I just converted it through Google Docs.
Okay.
So,
I can definitely send you a Word doc though, Chris.
Thank you.
On the other end. Great. I was gonna have us discuss both and then just do one vote if people are okay with that. If not, we can do separate votes for approval. Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments or edits, suggestions to the Conservation Advisory Group? All right. I'm gonna move on. Thanks for jumping in there, Chris. So Susan and I put together a proposal for an invasive plant. I think we just called it the Invasive Plant Advisory Group, did we? Can't even remember now.
You did.
Invasive
Plants Advisory Group, yes.
Felt like that. Kept it pretty open-ended. But yeah, basically, without getting too much into it as well, I kind of used Mark's proposal as a template. Thanks, Mark. And gave some background, And then I listed our objectives and then some initial goals, because I know that's one thing that we had talked about last meeting. And basically in short, we would like to use the advisory group as a way to monitor the invasive species in the cow pasture, prioritize which ones, may need attention sooner than later. And that can be based on resources available in our management plan. We'll use it as a way to communicate with local volunteer groups, as well as setting up our own events. And then, just to be flexible, again, given resources available and the time that people have. So I think, a big need for this group has been invasive plant control has actually been one of our more consistent topics over the years, whether it's just doing Green Up Day or, again, getting local groups involved. And so this just kind of, rather than using, sometimes a lot of committee meeting time to discuss that, it just gives us an outlet to have more informal discussions and then bring back the information in bulk to the rest of the committee. Yeah. So I know I just sent it yesterday, but has anyone that's been able to read it have any suggestions or comments regarding it? Jeanette?
Yeah, first, thank you for mentioning mental health and preventing burnout in one of your objectives, because I know that probably a lot of us, when we walk in the cow pasture, have a fair amount of guilt when we see when we see all the invasives growing there, and we're like, how are we going to manage it? So so thank you for that. And I do have a question. I'm not entirely clear. Are you hoping to recruit permanent members to this advisory group, or are you just thinking it's Susan and you, Tim, because then it can be a subcommittee, process wise, but were you thinking you're going to try to recruit other members to it as well? Or did you already and I missed that?
We have not. I don't think this is something we had discussed, but I think by keeping it advisory group, it just keeps it flexible to that option. So
Totally. Yep.
um,
Yeah. It looks great.
you're on mute, Susan.
I was saying, I wish we had so many people involved as Mark had for his group. Yeah, it would be great to find more.
I do have just a minor comments. One of them is one of the objectives, I guess, be flexible in terms of subcommittee goals. I would make sure, just to be consistent, to change that to what did we decide on? Work groups?
Advisory group, yeah. I must have missed
Advisory
that one.
group. And then there's another subcommittee, mention of subcommittee in 4, but I would just to avoid confusion with open meeting laws, get rid of, anything that refers to a committee.
Okay, yeah, good catch, Chris.
And the other thing that I had noted on here, and I'm feeling really bad, I start on Stephanie from the city. She was going to join the meeting, and I'm wondering if she could, and I'm wondering if she has had problems with the link as well.
She emailed us before the meeting and said that she was traveling in Maine on a coach bus and going into the forest or something, but she sent a bunch of information via email.
Oh, I didn't see that.
4:30 or 4:45.
Oh, thank you for catching that. All of a sudden I had a moment of panic that she might have tried to get in. Great,
No,
thanks.
she sent a bunch of details about what she's hoping to do with dates and all of that information.
Okay. The reason her name came up is that, just as far as a plant species guide, she might be a resource, because I think she had created something, and one of you committee members had seen what she had created, and you might get her involved in helping you out on that, her and her class. So I would encourage you to contact her if you would, like like help in that way. She might be able to
Yeah.
help or just provide you with what she already created for previous classes.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
and just so folks know, she provided a tentative schedule looking like she was going to do field identification of invasives at the cow pasture on April 12th, and then have 2 removal work days on the April 18th and April 19th.
Sorry, I kind of got everyone shifted a little bit there, but you know, maybe
No,
we can,
that's that was good, and that did just come in this afternoon. I think it's worth talking about. So let's do this real quick. Are there any other comments or updates recommended for the invasive plants advisory group proposal? Okay.
No, but I did send you an email request via Google Drive to allow like editing and commenting on it.
Okay.
I don't know if it's good to go, it's good to go, but it's helpful that you have that ability if you send something out so that people can edit it or provide comments. It was set to view only. Maybe you did that intentionally, but
Nope. But I can change it right now. There. So now people should be able to comment on it.
and so I don't know if this is an appropriate time unless somebody else has like a specific comment on the invasive plants. But I did have a recommendation on to add to both of the advisory groups, and I should have sent it out earlier, but I just sat down at 3:30 this afternoon to kind of look at these and had several other pots on the stove that I was dealing with. But I was thinking that it might be a good idea to add advisory group expectations, just kind of a general verbiage, much like starting off, much like what we have on the communication and agreement statement, that section, which something like while consensus decision making is important to the cow pasture committee, it is recognized some decisions are time sensitive and do not blah blah blah. Therefore, permission is granted to the advisory group to make decisions that clearly align with the community. So something along that lines, just to kind of make it so that you guys can make some decisions, because as the, you know, Tim and Susan pointed out, that there's every other meeting months, and that, you know, that you might come upon a situation where a group approaches you and wants to do a green up or a invasive control work in the committee, and it's in between meetings. It just gives you in writing kind of that flexibility to make decisions without the group's approval. So I could send that wording out. And then the other thing is just kind of just verbiage in general. Advisory groups will keep the Cow Pasture Stewardship Committee updated on anticipated activities and actions at regularly scheduled meetings. And then add on what Susan and, you know, Tim, what you had, advisory groups will meet when needed. So it's just kind of like a framework of how, you know, that these advisory groups will be working in. And also, I think most importantly, it gives you the flexibility if, you know, you're approached and there's a group of people that want to go up into the cow pasture and do invasive work, so that you don't have to bring it before the committee.
That makes sense to me, Mark.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up or not, but since we're talking about advisory groups, I had mentioned this, I think, to Chris, but I'm curious. I don't want to say I don't want to propose necessarily another advisory group, but I'm curious about invasive insects, and I know that whether or not that would be something that we'd consider integrating into the invasive plants, or if we think maybe we should have an invasive insect advisory groups. I have a lot of information on invasive insects that, but anyway, or maybe, the committee doesn't think that we need to go that route, but I just wanted to throw that out, and I don't know, again, if this is the appropriate time to have that discussion or not.
I can provide a quick explanation for my opinion on that. Was just there's already a lot to do with the plants, and while I do not know a whole lot about the plants, I know even less about the insects, and it just kind of felt overwhelming to consider that being another part of this advisory group.
Yeah,
I almost would agree that it could make sense to have a separate group for that, but I know a lot of people are already stretched thin between these new advisory groups and the URSA grant. So I was just sort of, I guess I would just decline at this point to do that, but.
And I'm on the opposite side of you. I know more about insects than I do about plants, so invasives, but okay. Yeah.
That being said, feel free to share information and bring up concerns and everything. Yeah, definitely. That's not to say that like we can't have those discussions or we can't do anything. So.
Okay.
I wonder if we could say invasive species, though, make the point that for now we're prioritizing plants just due to capacity.
That's a good point. We do talk about prioritization in our advisory group plan, so we could just rather than specifying plants, just say species, and then that becomes up to the group to how they want to focus their efforts.
Well, if you do that and you happen to find somebody who has a real interest in invasive insects and wants to do some work, volunteer work, you can just kind of, have them join the advisory group and take on that part of it. So it gives you some flexibility, even though we know that the priorities is plants for now.
And I have a lot of documentation, a lot of posters on invasive insects that I have friends that are tree wardens and they provided me with a lot of information that came from Forest Parks and Recreation from the state that I'd be willing to give to the advisory group if they decided they would like to put something up in the kiosk or something along those lines. I think it's more just in my mind, in species or invasive insects are so much more difficult to control or try to manage or mitigate, that it's more an idea of identification. And if somebody sees something, then say something, and who to say it to, because a lot of this tells you how to report invasive species, to the appropriate state agencies. So, and that's kind of information that I think that we as a stewardship committee could provide for the public that doesn't really give us too much responsibility ourselves because we're very limited in our resources, but could at least allow the public to report invasive insects should they encounter them in the cow pasture.
Yeah, and I really understand the importance of the invasive insects. I think I might have had the first tree in our county with emerald ash borer in our backyard 2 years or a year and a half before they found the first one. I kept saying, I think that tree has emerald ash borer, and I believe it did. So I understand the importance of it, but I also really understand the importance of kind of containing and not getting too stretched thin on these groups, whereas, I like the suggestion where you could mention invasive species, but to be perfectly honest, I got a cluster of papers from that, probably the same source as you, Mark, on invasive species from Ellen Sivert, who has like a forestry background and has been active in the community, and she passed it on to me for the committee. And honestly, I just didn't have the capacity to do anything with it, nor did I feel like the committee had, the capacity to do it. It's kind of in the middle of doing the URSA grant and everything. So I know the package of information that you have, and it's valuable information. But I think other than possibly the committee engaging somebody like we do on the bird walk to come and talk and distribute information to very specific people that are interested, that might be the easiest way to communicate that important information. It's just a suggestion of getting a resource person on site. Because a lot of people don't really know this, even the trees, the species of trees to be looking at. It's just so layered. And I certainly, even though I do know trees and I do know some of the invasive insects, I really wouldn't want to stick my, neck out and try to answer people's questions on that. So, yeah, I just really don't want committee members to get burnt out in any way. Because I've been there and don't know if I'm still there yet, but
Mark?
Yeah, I was just wondering, do we know if we have any invasive insects at the moment that are causing issues, or?
I don't.
I'm not aware of any. I know that there are some in the state that people are monitoring. Some have not made it this far north yet, but there's a woolly adelgid, which hemlock woolly adelgid, and spotted lanternfly. So those are kind of the things that that may ultimately show up here. But I mean, there may be EAB. I don't know if it's been identified in the cow pasture or not. But certainly it's here in Barre City.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and there's those they're not insects, but there's those crazy jumping worms too, all
Oh my
over Barre.
gosh.
These things freak me out.
Yeah. My raised bed is full of them.
Mhm.
Is that like the earthworm look-alike?
Yes.
Yeah, they squirm.
You can tell. It's yeah, there's no doubt once you touch them.
They have a pretty significant impact on the understory of forests that will probably cause some long-term issues,
Yeah.
especially for maple production and things like that.
Oh, I can't believe you have them, Janet. I'm so sorry.
Well, the Asian longhorn beetle, I'm sorry, that's a big one that could have a huge impact in Vermont on the maple industry. Sorry.
Well, I think the other thing, since many of us run in those circles with people that know a lot about this and that have access to resources, another thing that we might consider too is just really be aware of any testing that might be available, or how they hang up the traps in random places, and just if that is offered by the state, we could also just reach out and say, go to the cow pasture and try that. So just really have an ear to the ground on what opportunities are to be part of the bigger campaign to fight these things, and to make available the space too, and to make people aware that the space is there. So that could be another angle that is for those of you who talk to conservationists all the time and that have contact in that way.
Susan, do you have an opinion on it? Just because it's us two on the group right now. Not to put you on the spot.
Opinion on,
Sorry, I had suggested we could expand the advisory group to both. I just was curious if you had an opinion on that.
oh, I was thinking both, with priority being plants. Yeah. And I think based on the conversation that I'm hearing now, it even seems to have the possibility of broadening participation. So you're talking about testing by state agencies or identification. So that gets already more than 2 people involved. Yay.
Well, and I just want to be clear, when I threw that out about it was more for everybody. I don't want to put that on you, Susan and Tim, to identify opportunities. It's just because, all of us kind of serve in different committees or work at the state. So if we more of a general, hey, if you hear something, just think of the cow pasture as another opportunity. So I didn't want to,
I
pawn
heard it
that off
that
on
way.
you.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
heard it that way.
All
Not
right.
like, I didn't hear it. Susan and Tim have to do something. I heard there are resources in the world.
Okay.
This is part of a larger
Yeah.
scenario
Yeah.
that all of us are dealing with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other comments, questions regarding any of the advisory groups?
I don't know if it's appropriate, but maybe just to keep moving on, maybe I could make a motion to finalize the documents and approve them at the next meeting with the recommendations that were suggested tonight. But then in the meantime, I don't think there's any reason to not go ahead and continue meeting and doing what you need to do. So, with, your groups, with your subgroups, it doesn't truncate the ability for you guys to move on as subgroups.
I
So we would,
second. Oh,
okay.
sorry.
I just wanted to clarify, so we would be approving the advisory groups with the intent to finalize the descriptions, I guess, and officially vote on them next meeting. Okay, it's like yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, did somebody second that?
I'll second.
Okay.
And that did. And so regarding the motion to approve both advisory groups, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And then I think I heard aye from everybody, so the motion passes.
Okay.
Yay. What is next? I'm gonna move us along here because we're getting, time is happening. The next on the agenda was Ursa grant updates. Is there anything to report on? Yes. All right, go ahead.
I can just quickly add about the purchase and sales agreement. I haven't heard, I think it was probably about 3 weeks ago, I reached out and said, so how's it going? And Nicholas responded and said that it's with the attorneys, creating the purchase and sales agreement. I texted both Nicholas and Janet this morning and said, hey, our meeting's tonight. What can you give me as an update on the purchase and sales agreement? And I didn't get a response back. So I have nothing to add to that piece other than the fact that I keep forgetting that you guys are in all of these conversations. The appraisal came in at, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was at like $35,000. We had put into our proposal 15,000, which was the asking price 3 years ago. And so, as we had discussed in prior meetings, it was a concern of mine. I consulted with Nicholas, and I said, it was by rule that you have to show them, the landowner, the appraisal. You can't just offer them 15,000 without a landowner, without them knowing what their property is worth. So he said, just have a conversation with Maryland, and let her know what it's appraised for, and let her know the circumstances that we put in for 15,000. That's what we got, and we might be able to take monies from some other line item in the budget. But I kept trying to get her to given what value she would want for it, and she just kind of wouldn't budge. So I threw out, was it 20,000? I think was what we offered her, and she accepted it verbally over the phone. So I passed that on to the city, and so they were going to be creating a purchase and sales agreement with the offer of 20,000. When I added up in that, it wasn't a lot of money, but I figured in that she had been paying taxes over the years, so I added up the amount of taxes that she paid for the last 3 years. and then some more. So, so I think she was happy with that. She doesn't have to put it up for sale, doesn't have to pay a realtor fee. So there was a lot of advantages from her perspective, and as to whether or not she would ever get that amount of money that it was appraised for, I don't know. So anyway, so that's, we'll have to pull some line items, come up with the extra money on that, but hopefully that's going through as planned, and there's not another glitch in that. So that's all I have on the Ford property, and maybe you could provide updates on the Ursa grant, that the RFP, Jim.
I have a quick question on that. So is the extra 5,000 going to come from the city?
No, they have no monies. I tried that route, and they made it very clear with the situation the city is in, that they have no extra monies for that. But I think there was, I believe, an $8,000 line item in the grant for hazardous tree removal, and it was not for the city. It wasn't in-kind city, but we were thinking about the trail coming up from Route 14 with those old pines. So I think that extra money can come from that line item, and we would just ask permission, or just let the administrators of the Ursa grant know that. I will also reach out to Becca Washburn, who is administrating the grants, to see if they have any extra money before offering that up. So that's the only places that I can think. But I think that we should, personally, I think that, and maybe we should discuss this as a group, I think we should try to keep the Semper Bond money set aside, because that's been so useful for getting matching grants and, doing what we need to do. There's still, I think, $12,000 left in that. So if the committee, and this could be a future discussion, because I think there's going to be other things that are going to come in at a lot higher price than what we requested. The attorney closing fees, I think that's, the attorney is somebody from Burlington now, and I bet they're going to be higher than what we expected, but there might be other cost overruns as well. But the line item that I was thinking about within the Ursa grant was the hazardous tree removal, and we could just let the city deal with that if perhaps maybe when we get the trail assessment done, they could point out that there's hazardous trees, and that could be a recommendation that the city take care of them. But there's ways of throwing that line item back to the city and putting it on them in a different way.
Okay, I was going to ask about the Semper Bond money, but I agree that can be a really long discussion. Jeanette, did you want to say something, or?
No, I was going to ask about that too. That's why I had my hand raised and took it down. Thank you.
Okay.
So the Semper Bond money is absolutely there, and that could be, it would certainly would be beyond like a subcommittee discussion. I think that we can come up with any, like even after the closing costs get done, come up with, a number and say, where do we want to take? Do we want the hazardous, subcontract out somebody for, and that's just another step that we'll have to do, I think, as a subcommittee, find somebody to come in and get bids and get the hazardous trees removed. So it's just another layer of work for the subcommittee to complete that grant. So honestly, with things going as slow as they have been with the city, I would just soon let them deal with it.
Okay.
All right, I'm happy to provide an update on the trail side of the Ursa grant. We put out an RFP for a request for proposals with an S, and I think similar to the property issue, the cost of doing this kind of work and the cost of supplies increased, and the folks that I knew at Sinuosity said that it was a little underfunded for the amount of work, and they didn't end up submitting a proposal. But fortunately, a man named Zach at Apex Trail Works out of the Randolph area did submit a proposal for for all of the work, and Janet and I got together and talked about it and had a few more questions for him, but we sent a message out and accepted his proposal, and he agreed to do the work. So he's ready to go. I think he was hoping to get the work done this summer. It'll be questionable whether he'll really be able to pull it off, given all of the planning for the work, the actual trail assessment, and then us needing to review what he brings back to us. He seems pretty gung-ho about it. There were a few questions we sent out to him. There was also some comments from Janet about some things that need to get squared away, like his certificate of insurance. And there's one other thing. I think maybe it was where he could purchase materials, but all that stuff seems to be good to go. So yeah, one proposal, and he agreed to do the work, and it seems like he's capable of it. There will be some decisions to be made as far as design of the bridge and some of the signage and the trail mapping work that we do.
Do we need any permits from the city or anything?
Yep.
From the state.
There will probably be one permit associated with the bridge over the small stream.
Mhm.
But it sounded like he wouldn't have to deal with that would be, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be the city that would be handling that side of it.
And
Yeah.
that was one of my concerns with him being so gung-ho. And I was out of state, and I was very grateful that Jim and Jeanette stepped forward to review the proposal and to that step of the work. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. But one of my concerns was to be raised was that he would, in my communication with him, and I think he's going to be great. I met, spoke with him several times, and he really was paying attention to details in the proposal, and really, I think did a thorough job in reviewing and looking at capacity as to whether or not, he thought that he could do it. He was thinking that it was a big ask for that amount of money as well. So I think we're fortunate to have him on board. But as far as if he was so gung-ho about getting it done this year, there might be, I don't think he can start the bridge until, we get that whatever permit that's needed, and the city that goes into Janet's ball field, and how that's been like, it's difficult getting progress, making progress on those kinds of things that are out of our ball field. So did he understand that when you spoke to him, that it might not be possible because of those, the communication with the committee and it being summer? And
I didn't really address that via the email accepting his proposal. I figured that we would meet with him at some point on site probably in April at some point, and that we could have a more detailed discussion about timeline and what the specific needs are. Janet had also mentioned that he might need to draft a contract, which I don't necessarily know how that works exactly. I don't know if it's a contract to protect us to ensure that he finishes the work, or it's a contract to protect him that we pay him. I wasn't entirely sure about that.
Well, I think it's regular procurement, right? Where the city is hiring somebody to do work for a lot of money, and I think it's probably just part of the regular procurement that we might have to do a contract with him. So I'm not surprised that she may have mentioned that. The other thing too is he quoted 4 to 6 weeks to do the entire job, and I think what that means is whenever he starts, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, because he wants to have all of his equipment on site, and maybe not the signage, but the actual trail work and the bridge building and everything. It makes sense for him to just bring all his equipment, get it all done in that amount of time. But of course, the permitting, the contracting, the permitting, all of that. And he's going to provide a bridge design as his next step, and a detailed budget as well. And I think then probably we can push Janet a little bit with, getting the permitting and everything, and maybe even, I don't know if she does the permitting or somebody else in the city, but try to kind of hound them a little bit. And I know, Chris, you have been hounding Janet whenever, and I appreciate that, but the actual physical work, he anticipates being 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which I believe, especially if he has a crew with a few people and it isn't that long of a trail, I think the work time would be 4 to 6 weeks, but some of it might be spread out, but then the actual like physical work would probably be fairly quick.
Yeah.
Looks like Steve has his hand up too.
Yeah, just just some, hopefully some outside observations and some help. Who's responsible for preparing the permit application? Is it your contractor?
No.
I believe it's the state, like we had to send in a, I forget the terminology it was, for the URSA grant, like, a request to the state, do we need a permit? And at the bottom, there was, that there was a checkbox of one
Yeah.
of the items that we needed a permit for the bridge. And so I believe it's this, and Janet clarified it's the city that would apply for that permit.
Yeah.
And it's with the permit is with the state.
So does that mean that, so the city would apply for the permit from the state?
Yes. Probably to a river engineer.
Yeah, okay. And you're saying it would be Janet, or I'll say somebody on her staff, sort of lightly, but that would be responsible for putting, I get where I was going with all this. If it was the contractor who was responsible for preparing the permit application, in an effort to take advantage of time, and he could start working on that now. But if it's going to be the city, then I guess that may make some time, take some time.
It's a good
And-
idea, Steve. Oh, sorry, Chris.
But Zach, in the conversation with him, he was very clear that he didn't want, like, that was kind of almost going to be I'm not interested in this
Yeah.
project if
Yeah.
I have to be the person getting the permit. He said it's time consuming, a lot of back and forth, and I don't know if he shared that with you guys, but that's why I clarified it with Janet that they would be applying, but his red flags went right up with the amount of time that was going to be necessary for him to be doing this. And Janet said, no, it would be the city.
He wants to do the work, not the administration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe if Janet tells us what the forms are and whatever, we can maybe be helpful and sit down as a subcommittee and prep them. I think that's where you're going, Steve, is
the more
somebody, we could do as much of the work as we can with, and then she would take over.
And take advantage of sort of available time, as a lot of the other pieces are trying to be pulled together, rather than do it Indian file. The more you can do in a parallel path, the more likely that it'll get done on schedule this summer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good recommendation, Steve. I think it would make sense to start looking into that now, just for us, because of the lack of communication with Janet, that if we actually figure out what we need and start drafting it, that we can maybe just drop in the information that Zach gives us about the span and the location and get it moving. And I mean, I worked in the Rivers program pretty close to some of the engineers, so I could figure out kind of how that process works too on that end of it, and then just push the city to make sure that we can keep Zach moving so that it isn't something that's held up until August or something.
And the only other suggestion I have is if the committee can get a copy of the application form, whether that's from Janet or from the state, and because I don't think Janet is going to have all the information at her disposal. She's going to probably reach back out to the committee to get this and get that and whatever. So the sooner you know what the supporting pieces are, it can start to pull them together. Again, it'll avoid another delay when Janet finally gets to it and then starts asking the questions.
Yeah.
So,
great idea.
Good suggestions. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks.
And Steve, do you know about the procurement process? Do we have to write a contract with Zach, or? something? What's the formal
So
process?
the the contract will be with the city. It doesn't have to be. There are some pretty simple contract forms.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you don't have to write a whole. Really, just a basic boilerplate um, contract that references the scope of work, and it references the proposal that would
Right.
include everything from scope of work to schedule to fee. You don't have to rewrite all of that and embed it in a contract. So it could be a very simple 2-page form. I'd be more than willing to look in the files that I have. If I can, in the next few days, if I can find a sample copy that I think would work, I'd be happy to send it out to you.
Well, I think, Jim, we haven't really had answers from Janet yet, have we, to our questions? And I think one of the questions was, how do we officially accept? I mean, she said we can verbally accept with Zach and then we'll somehow get started. But I think the next step is to really kind of pin her down to what needs to officially happen to get this work started.
I'll try to look through my files. I have some hard copy copies that I saved, and limited access. Unfortunately, when I left, I thought I had a copy of all my electronic files on my computer, and in a sense I did, except what I forgot was I had all the file folders, the index on my computer, but they all referred back to the city server.
Yeah.
So the
Sure.
minute I left, I lost access. But I'll give me a few days. I'll look to see what I might have in a paper fashion. If I have it, I'll make a fax or a scan, and I'll send it out. I'll let you know either way whether I found something or not. But it doesn't have to be in my head. I can see it.
Yeah.
I just got to be able to put my fingers on it.
So not complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
Track down your classified documents.
I know.
Yeah, I know. No, they wouldn't let me touch classified stuff.
Yeah, so that, that question, I think Janet threw it to us about getting a contract, but it's clearly, I think, like the city. I don't know if she had the ability to do that or had to do that in the past, or if that's something new to her. But I thought, it's not Apex doing a contract, it's the city doing the contract.
It should be, there's no reason it shouldn't be very simple.
Yeah.
Nothing more than 2 pages plus the attachment of the proposal. So like I said, I could, this isn't a heavy duty scope of work or complex contract or anything like that. It doesn't need.
I think it would be easy to copy and paste from the RFP in his proposal and just list the things he's
No,
going to do.
No, what I'm saying is you don't have to do that.
You just
don't have to do any of that.
In the body of the contract, a simple 2-page contract, just there'd be a statement that says the scope of work is as per the proposal, or the proposal is
Great.
I forget the mechanics of it. I know it's very simple, but it's the old KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid, and just incorporate the proposal by reference, and that saves a lot of that kind of work.
Yeah.
So let me see what I can find.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
really
thanks,
appreciate it. And the other one thing that was lingering was his insurance, proof of insurance. And I didn't look that up today, but I am quite certain that was in the deliverables that we requested in the RFP. So Janet shouldn't have accepted the RFP unless she accepted, if she got that piece of information already.
Assuming he's got insurance. I mean, all he's got to do is write his insurance agent, and they should be able to provide that within a day.
Yeah. It's a simple COI.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Given the other projects he's worked on, I would be surprised if he wasn't insured. So it shouldn't be an issue. So
it sounds like Jim, Chris, and I, we haven't had a chance to reconnect after Chris got back. So sorry, we're hashing out some of the more subcommittee-ish details here. But it sounds like we should meet and work out next steps, but now you all have the update. We have a contractor.
Exciting.
Yes.
Thanks for the update. I do want to move us along. Are there any other updates that we can keep brief on that?
One question for Chris. Was any of the money intended for tools going to be used for the property? Or can I move forward on starting to put together a tool purchase for trail work?
I think I'll ask the committee. There was an $800 line item for tools for the cow pasture. And I personally, I would hate to see that line item disappear. But I think that the big question is if we have additional, other than the $8,000, which I'm thinking that we're going to have to allocate, take in other directions. Hopefully any other cost exceedances will be within that $8,000 line item for the hazard tree removal. I would like to make a motion that we give Jim the permission to go ahead and purchase the tools that he offered to kind of research and price out for us.
No, let me tell you one.
I'll second that. Any other questions, comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I see everybody, so that's the motion passes. Thanks,
The
Chris.
one question while we're thinking about those tools, Jim, I had mentioned a while back that, it would be nice to have them in a central, I've got one tool here, the puller bear, that I'd love to see not in my garage. But, finding a central location to house those tools. And I asked at the city if there was a place, and they said, oh, I would keep them under lock and key, because tools are going to just disappear if you have them. So the recommendation that I might have is that if you see that they're, and you might ask questions before making this investment, maybe ultimately they will be housed at someone's property so that they could be used by other committees like the river committee, and it'd be nice to have them engraved too. I don't know if you could throw in an engraver as part of, if they're all going to be wooden handled, or, I know the puller bear they soldered on cow pasture committee on the puller bear, but something, in that budget to kind of mark them somehow. But also a locked box for them. I don't know if that's kind of a waste of money, if you'll end up like not getting an important tool to get a chest in case we could put them in the cemetery building, is the thought that I had, that brick building, just so that they're not, unless somebody wants to house them at their house. That might be something you might consider as far as the purchase.
Okay, that sounds good. I
Can
have
I-
a Dremel.
Tim, can I just put in for a second? I can't stay to the end. I've got an 8-week-old puppy here that needs to go outside, so I got to attend to him. But I see on the agenda it says Green Up Day, May 16th. And it's actually
wrong
May
date.
4th. Yeah, okay, it's May 4th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
is.
I'm sorry. I have it. It's and the important dates down below. I have May 4th. That's my mistake.
Well, that's
All
May
good.
4th there, but up in the agenda it says May 16th.
I see that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, so that was that'll be okay. Yeah.
We can
Sorry
correct that
about
in the
that.
minutes. I saw the date and I was like, that seems late for Green Up Day, but
No, it's a Thursday also.
And I'll do what I can to find a draft contract, and I'll let you know either way. I'll send it if I find it, or I'll let you know that I did. But
Great, thank you,
that'll be in
Steve.
the next
Thanks.
3 days.
Thanks so much, Steve, and congratulations on your new little puppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right here. Just a second.
Oh, you gotta show the committee.
Hopefully he doesn't pee on your keyboard.
Hey, now we have a committee puppy.
He's our
Oh
mascot.
my gosh.
There he is.
Oh, he's so cute.
I keep telling him it's a good thing he's cute, because otherwise he'd be in trouble.
Yep.
My wife and I have figured out we're not going to die of old age. We're going to die of puppy.
Well, it's best way to go.
we forgot how many, this is our third, and we forgot how much time a puppy takes, and it's 24/7, as you probably all know. Okay, his name is Sully, and you'll see him up in the cow pasture sooner or later. All right, take care.
Totally.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining,
Steve.
Steve.
Not a problem. See you later.
All right, I am gonna move us along here on to our next topic, which is Green Up Day. So I'll make this quick. I think this kind of falls under the invasive, or it can fall under the invasive plant advisory group anyway. But generally every year we get together as a committee, and we may or may not send an invite out to community members to join us. And we just find an area to target invasive species, plants, and remove them. Sometimes that also ends up being litter as well. I believe one of the past years we cleaned up a couple encampments that were kind of over on the hillside facing Route 14. And so generally how this works is the week or two before is when I just kind of blast a couple social media messages and let the committee know what time we meet. It's usually 9 a.m. on Green Up Day, and we spend a few hours just getting together to do that. So I'll just start off and make a motion that we kind of follow suit and do that. I can take the lead on it again this year. And yeah, any questions or comments on that?
I have a really quick question, Tim.
Yeah.
In your proposal for the advisory group, you say 2 events a year. Are you thinking that Green Up Day is going to be one of the 2 events?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have a suggestion, and take it or leave it. Because we compete with people on Green Up Day so much, and people are all over like, oh, I'm doing the river, I'm doing this, that. I don't know if it would make sense to have the 2 not be Green Up Day, the 2 events, one of them not be Green Up Day, so we don't have to compete so much for the people. But I totally get why you would roll that into Green Up Day, because it's the day that people want to come out and help. So there's pros and cons for it.
Yeah, I do understand that. It was also kind of like a low-hanging fruit kind of event that we could definitely do.
Yeah.
However, Green Up Day, I've noticed, is kind of turning into like Green Up Week. So, we could potentially do it on the Saturday or the following weekend, as like an opportunity for that. So definitely something we can consider.
I would add that it initially was really a green up. We used to take mounds and mounds and mounds of trash out of, the cow pasture, numerous encampments. So there was it really started off as a green up day, and then the pasture it's not been an issue, an occasional encampment, but it's nothing like bringing out the mattresses, and we bought balls of barbed wire fence, that we were allowed to take down one year, broken up fence. And so it initiated as a true green up day, and then it just kind of morphed into invasive plants, just because there was not the need for green up in the pasture as there had been.
Maybe that's your hook. That's your hook. You don't have to move trash. You just pull out plants.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, potentially with the eclipse, we can see what that ends up being like, because maybe there will be a need to clean up trash on Green Up Day. And then if not, maybe we can consider pushing it a weekend and seeing if we can get any more additional people that were busy to come help out. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, so go ahead and take the lead on it, Tim. I really appreciate you doing that for the last several years.
That's not a problem. Okay. Any other comments, questions regarding that? All right, so I'm going to keep that motion on the floor regarding taking the lead on doing a Green Up Day event. Looking for a second. Thanks, Mark. And then all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and that was everybody, so the motion passes. Thanks. And I think we're getting near our time here. But generally what we do for the end here is we have a list of items we just generally table under updates. So I'm just going to open that up to anybody that has updates or questions regarding any of those?
I'm gonna actually back up a little bit.
Oh,
I
I'm
wanted-
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure that as a newly formed advisory group, should Tim and I just work with Stephanie on coordinating what she suggested?
Oh,
Would
thank,
And it, yeah, so we'll work together on that and get a hold of
Okay.
Stephanie.
Yeah,
thank
thanks,
you so
Susan.
much for bringing that up. That would be awesome. And with that said, in the past, we talked about doing, getting T-shirts for the group, and you know that there was so many conflicts with that. The one thought I had, and I totally forgot because it wasn't, you know, Stephanie wasn't here. But I don't know if the subcommittee would want to approve, and it would have to be before our next meeting, just as a thank you for the class. We might not have T-shirts, but maybe see if we could use some of the Semper Bomb money to like get them pizza on the last day that they're there, or anything as kind of a thank you and an acknowledgement. You know, we have had, you know, either a committee member, I think Tim, you went one year and I went another year, to just physically go there and thank them and let them know how important the work is. So I think that's an important thing for someone to do, associated with the committee. I'm not working, so I'd be willing to be that person if you need somebody to help out on that. But also I would be willing to, if you think it's appropriate, that, you know, we do something like, you know, order them pizza on the last day, and you could talk to Stephanie about that. But I think that that might be a legitimate use of a bit of the Semper Bond money. But I don't know how the committee feels about that.
I like that idea. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be on the last day, because I know it's coming up. It could simply be like if they're still in school in May, I think, sending them like a thank you card, and you know, we work it out with Stephanie that we get them pizza or something and it gets delivered to the classroom or something.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a really good idea. So I think, I don't know if we have to make a motion. I would like to make a motion, I guess, to provide a thank you in the way of pizza for the class, assuming that works out, and use the Semper Bond money for that.
I second that.
I don't think that we'll end up spending too much on pizza, but do we need to put a limit on that?
I would like you to.
I feel like does $50 sound reasonable?
I don't know. I think the class was like 20 people.
As Basil's closed, so
Oh, I'm so sad.
money
Yeah.
prices
that-
on
Yeah.
I'm just thinking high school students and Domino's is probably.
Domino's,
gonna
yep.
be a lot of people
Yeah.
who eat it.
Then
Um,
$50 should be enough. If you're going
exactly.
Zachary's, you might do 60 if you're going Pearl Street. Then
Way more than that.
no.
Okay, so I guess we can do this. Make a recommendation. The motion is amended to say we use a maximum of $50 from the Semper Bond fund to buy pizza for the CCVC class. Did I say that right? CVCC class.
I'll second.
All right.
Favor.
Any other
Aye.
questions? Great, you guys are ahead of the game. This is awesome. Motion passes. And thank you for bringing that up, Susan. I wanted to do that and I just forgot. Any of the updates listed on the agenda, or any other updates that anybody would like to discuss, bring up quick?
I'll
Cool.
bring the Senate
Oh, yeah.
bill S55 to the committee next time, because by then they'll have it will have gone through the House. It just crossed over into the House. So if anything changes with it, I'll bring it. And I'm sure the city has to retrain us on open meeting law because it has some bigger impacts.
Okay.
Where we might be required to offer hybrid. So when we're in the cow pasture, we will have to figure out how to do hybrid and possibly also make a recording. So there'll be some big implications, but it just crossed over. It could not go anywhere at all. So I'll bring it next time. By then they'll be probably done.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette.
Thanks.
And then I think another one of the added items we talked about was just clean up after the eclipse. We kind of talked that about Green Up Day, but I figure just send an informal email to committee members as I guess non-committee business to abide by open meeting laws if there seems to be a litter problem after that event, and we'll figure it out. All right. Well, we started like over 10 minutes late, but I can adjourn the meeting at 6:59.
Oh, it just clicked to 7 o'clock.
Good work.
Oh,
Good
now it's
work.
7. Yeah, here it is.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.